Hello, 6th grade math students. This is Chapter 3.1, Part 1, Dividing Fractions. In this two-part lesson, we're going to learn to divide a fraction, a whole number, or a mixed number by a fraction or a mixed number. This is fun, but it's tricky, so let's get started. Let's start by dividing a whole number by a unit fraction. We're going to start with these two pies. Lee cut two pies into pieces that were each 1/4 of the pie. So see, we have two pies here, each cut into 4 pieces. So how many pieces did Lee cut the two pies into? Well, we have 2 pies. We're going to divide those by 1/4. So our model shows that the number of quarters in one pie is 1, 2, 3, 4, correct? And the number of quarters in 2 pies would be 2 times 4, equaling 8 pieces. So 2 divided by 1/4 is the same thing as 2 times 4. And the answer is 8. Okay, so wait a second. How does 2 divided by 1/4 become 2 times 4? Well, in one pie, there are 4 quarters. So in 2 pies, there are 8 quarters. So what we're doing is we're taking 2 wholes and we're dividing them into fourths, which gives us 8. Make sense? Sort of? I hope so. There's an important vocabulary note we need to learn here as well. 1/4 and 4 are what are called reciprocals. When you take 2 numbers and multiply them together to get a product of 1, then they're called reciprocals of one another. In general, dividing a number is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal of the number. So 2 divided by 1/4 is the same as 2 times 4. Because dividing a number is the same as multiplying it by the reciprocal. Let's continue with this idea. Let's work through another problem. A bottle contains 2 quarts of cooking oil. A chef uses 1/12 of the bottle each day. How many days will the bottle of cooking oil last? Let's start by creating a number sentence to express what this problem is asking. We have a 2-quart bottle that we're going to divide into 1/12 portions. Okay? So what's our next step? We need to rewrite this problem using the reciprocal of our divisor. So we're going to rewrite the problem. Drop down your 2 quarts. Now drop down your division sign, except it's going to go through the magical sign changer and become a multiplication sign. And now your 1/12 is going to go through the magical reciprocal maker and become a 12. So 2 quarts divided by 1/12 becomes 2 quarts times 12, which is now a very simple math problem. 2 times 12 is 24 days. The bottle of oil will last the chef 24 days. Let's try another problem like this, just to seal in the ideas. Rena cut 3 paper squares into a number of equal pieces. Each piece was 1/6 of the square, like this. For those of you who had forgotten about my subpar art skills, here they are back on display. However, it'll work for our purposes. So, into how many pieces did Rena cut the 3 paper squares? Well, there are a couple of ways to solve this. One, we could kind of cheat, right? And we could just count all the pieces, but that's little kid stuff. We're going to do this the big kid way. So the number of pieces will equal 3 squares divided by what? That's right, 1/6, because we cut each square into 6 pieces. What this statement is saying is 3 divided by 1/6 means how many 1/6 are in 3 wholes. So how many times can we put 1/6 into 3 whole parts? Okay, let's solve. We need to send our number sentence through our magical reciprocal making machine here. So we're going to drop down the 3. Then we send our division sign through the magical multiplication sign making machine and drop an X right here for multiplication. Then our 1/6 goes through the reciprocal machine and becomes 6, giving us a final answer of 18 pieces. 3 divided by 1/6 means the same thing as 3 times 6, because multiplying a number by its reciprocal is the same as dividing it by that number. And thus 3 divided by 1/6 can be solved by taking 3 times 6 to get our final answer, which is 18. All right, try these 6 on your own. Remember the steps. Drop down the first number, then convert the division sign into a multiplication sign, then convert your fraction into its reciprocal, and solve. All right, try all of these on your own, and go. Now let's learn to divide a whole number by a proper fraction. So we're going to take 5 divided by 2/3. So what we're really asking is, how many 2/3 are in 5 wholes? Okay, so we're going to follow exactly the same steps as we did in our previous problems. We're going to drop down our 5. We're going to drop down our division sign, but change it into a multiplication sign, so that we can use the reciprocal, which in this case will be 3/2, to multiply and solve. Because remember, when we use the fact that dividing a number is the same as multiplying by its reciprocal, dividing by fractions becomes quite simple. All right, now let's work this problem through. To multiply fractions, we need to take numerators times numerators and denominators times denominators. Well, 5 doesn't appear to have a denominator, but it does. It has an invisible 1, 5/1. If putting the 1 there helps you keep everything in order, go for it. You don't need it, but if it helps you, put it there. 5 times 3 will be our numerator, and that gives us 15. 1 times 2 is 2, giving us our denominator. So our fraction is 15 halves. We can change that into a mixed number, and I'll remind you of how that process works. We can take 15, the numerator, and divide it by 2, the denominator. What do we get? We get 7. 2 times 7 is 14, right? So we take our remainder and we put it over our denominator. So we can rewrite 15 halves as 7.5. So here is the improper fraction. Here is the mixed number, just to remind you of that vocabulary. Let's try another problem like this. A chef cooks 12 pounds of pasta every day. She uses 3/16 of a pound for each serving that she prepares. So, how many servings of pasta does the chef prepare each day? So what we're asking is, how is our chef dividing 12 pounds of pasta by 3/16 of a pound? How many times can she put 3/16 of a pound into her 12-pound original amount? Let's work this out. Our first step is to rewrite the problem using the reciprocal of the divisor. So once again, drop down that 12. Change that division sign into a multiplication sign. Drop down this fraction, but write the reciprocal. Don't forget, if it helps you, you can put 12/1 so that you can see that there is a denominator, it's just 1. Now, we solve. First, let's take a look at our numerators and denominators and see if there are any opportunities to cross-reduce. This will make our multiplication job a lot easier. Well, let's see. Remember, you cross-reduce by looking at one numerator, and the other fraction's denominator. Do 12 and 3 have any common factors? They sure do. They can both be divided by 3. So let's write that in and rewrite our fractions as 4/1 times 16/1. This problem has just become quite simple, right? 4 times 16. What's our answer? That's right, it's 64. So our chef is able to get 64 servings out of her 12 pounds of pasta. Voila! If we wanted to check to see if this answer is reasonable, all we need to do is take our 64 servings, times 3/16, which was the size of our serving, correct? And we multiply this. Once again, we look for opportunities to cross-reduce. Do 64 and 16 have any common factors? Sure, we know they can both be reduced by, well, 16 actually. They're both divisible by 16. So now we'll rewrite our problem as 4 times 3, because 64 divided by 16 equals 4. And hey, look, we end up with 12 pounds of pasta. So our calculation that there were 64 servings must have been correct. Let's try another problem. What is 7 divided by 3/4? Let's just run this through our steps. Drop down the 7. Drop down the division sign, but it converts to a multiplication sign. Drop down 3/4, but use the reciprocal, 4/3. Remember, if it helps you, put your 7 over a 1. Now we multiply numerator by numerator. 7 times 4 is 28. 3 times 1 is 3. Now we can change this into a mixed number by first dividing 28 by 3. How many times will 3 go into 28, guys? That's right, 9 times. 9 times 3 is 27. So 28 minus 27 gives us a remainder of 1, which becomes our new numerator. And we put that over our denominator, 3. So our final answer is 9 1/3. Let's do one last one together before I send you off to try some on your own. Mrs. Johnson bought 6 pizzas. She cut them into many equal pieces for the students in her class. She's a nice teacher. Each piece was 3/10 of a whole pizza. So how many students were there in the class if each child received only 1 piece of pizza? Okay, so what we're solving for here is 6 divided by 3/10, because we want to know how many times 3/10 goes into these 6 pizzas. Okay, let's solve. Let's follow our 3 steps again. Drop down the 6, drop down the division sign and convert it to a multiplication sign, drop down 3/10, but write it as its reciprocal. Put the 1 there if you need it. Now, let's check and see if we can cross-reduce. Are there any numbers that both fit into both 6 and 3? Sure are. Both can be divided by 3, correct? So we now rewrite our fraction as 2 over 1 times 10 over 1, which gives us an answer of 20. Mrs. Johnson had 20 very lucky students in her class who enjoyed a pizza lunch. Mr. Giraffe wants to see your smarts. Please record these in your homework notebook. There are 3 more on the next page, so when you finish these 3, come on back. And here are your final 3. Thanks for working so hard in this lesson. I'll see you tomorrow to divide more fractions and to learn how to divide fractions by fractions. It's pretty cool. And don't forget to be awesome every day. See you tomorrow, kiddos.